I also think just letting it do like one round of
We're live.
one round of like start and stop,
Uh-huh.
it allows it to catch up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It allows it to like get, we're good.
We're good?
All right.
Cool.
Let's again.
Welcome back. We're so glad you're here.
How was your weekend, Danielle?
My week has been pretty good. Yesterday I had a bit of a moment of, I woke up feeling a little bit like garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really kind of tune in with myself and say, what do you need today, Danielle? And I didn't know. And so I did a little bit of journaling and a little bit of checking in with my intuition. And she was like, you know what? That's okay. If you have a couple hours of not being productive, get yourself out of the house. I went on a little hike, did a little bit of work, came back. And yeah, just a little reminder that sometimes you're not going to have a perfect day. And sometimes you got to check in with your intuition, give yourself a little bit of love.
And you're doing better today?
Oh, I'm doing great today.
Okay.
Yeah, and today started out, super solid. I've been very productive. So yeah.
We do not weigh our worthiness on productivity, though.
Yeah, I know. It's a lesson.
But
getting there.
Still in Capricorn season, so
Mm-hmm.
getting all that stuff done, which definitely aligns with like how my week has been. It's been like so each day is so full and I'm doing so much, but I'm not overwhelmed, and it's all stuff that I want to be doing. I was in therapy this week, and she was just, I kind of didn't have anything to talk about, and she was like, well, that's good, but like so, she's kept asking me like different like segments of my life, like you're feeling fulfilled spiritually, you're feeling fulfilled in your relationship and your friendships, and I'm like, yeah, like everything's pretty cool. Yeah.
She's like, well, my job here is done. Literally, but hoping you'd have a little more chaos going on, but
so it feels really good to just kind of have full busy days, but not be overwhelmed and it's crazy. I was also thinking about it. It's like we don't have to get up and get in the car and go anywhere, which is such a luxury and something I am so grateful and blessed to have be a part of my life, which I think we really called in, and we were really intentional with. That was a reason why we were going to move in together, because right now we just like switch from each other's rooms to record the podcast each week, and it's just so nice. So yeah, busy, but feeling fulfilled and balanced, and I've been moving my body every day since the beginning of the year. So watch out.
Watch out, world.
Summer
gonna do a little bikini photo shoot.
Hitting your late 20s, you're like, all right, I really gotta like keep it how I want it.
It's so hard. Yeah, I feel like I definitely have been pushing the balance a little bit, but because I have been for the most part balanced, when I have the days like yesterday where I wake up feeling like garbage, I'm able to like course correct so much easier. So then today I do wake up and I'm fine and I'm able to like get through it. So it's nice that even when you get to the point of where you are, when you do get a little off balance, it's like, oh, just gonna correct a little bit and you can get back on that path.
Things are less dramatic. You're like, all right, I'm allowed to have an off day. Just get back on the horse.
Yeah.
And get to it.
I feel like I probably said this before, but when I turned 29, my theme of this year was going to be consistency. And that's my main goal of just like everything.
Yeah.
All facets of my life. Like just show up and be consistent. If you can't show up one day, that's okay. Show up tomorrow.
And you know who's consistent?
Who?
Your higher self.
Your higher self. She's the best.
She is the best. Yeah. I mean, when it comes to my day-to-day, a lot of it's not super conscious all the time. Sometimes it is. Sometimes I check in with myself 10 times in a day of like, feeling frustrated and kind of wanting to choose the easier route or to be honest, more like lazy route or the less, and not show up for myself fully. But like our topic today, the higher self, it's like I am constantly checking in with my higher self and like, okay, what should I do in this situation? What should I do now? What should I do now?
Yeah.
And you can just like live your whole life just asking your higher self, and it'll show
Because
you the way.
your higher self is always going to have the right answers. I'll tell you that.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of listening. It's just a matter of tuning in. Yeah, for me, like yesterday when I was like starting to get really, really down on myself, taking a moment to journal, it was like what was coming through was just like send grace to yourself, send love to yourself, like it's okay. And like all of that, that's your higher self talking when it's like a voice of love, a voice of comfort, a voice of like, but also you got this, and
Mhm.
like a voice of encouragement, I'd
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
And your higher self, I mean, like we've said before, is another word for your intuition. I think all of these are resources as far as tapping into yourself and getting the answers from within. So if you feel better, asking questions and waiting for that gut feeling and, whatever that answer may be, that's one way. And I know we both do. It's all just tools in a tool belt. You know what I mean? Like we use these resources interchangeably. You don't pick one and forget the other. I think there's different situations where I use different modalities, and the higher self is definitely a really tangible. It's like talking to a person.
Well, and it's like it's talking to yourself, so it's way less intimidating because it's like it's like the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, I have to like go ask someone else, or it's looking within
Mhm.
and knowing that that version of you, has that wisdom that you seek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get to create that person. I'll go into it further a little bit later on, how to tap into your higher self. But this is someone that you basically create, and it's not creating out of your ego, it's creating out of your intuition, out of
Mhm.
your like true soul blueprint of what you envision for yourself being the most evolved version of you.
Mhm.
And then from there you can use it as a resource to ask questions, to gain clarity on situations. And
yeah, when I think about the higher self, I think of the intuition as like their way of communicating. So if I am asking my higher self, like, oh, what should I do in this situation? Or, how am I feeling, or what should I feel? I think of it as like when I tune into my intuition, that's how I'm able to get those answers. But like you said, it's all different tools, and it's whatever, you feel the most comfortable thinking of or using. I think it's just another way to think about just our connection to source.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely situational for me. Like a constant one that I use my higher self for is because I can be fiery at times. My Leo moon can be.
What?
I know. I need to share all my emotions all the time, whether they're good or bad.
Yeah.
And my higher self, I use that version of myself a lot when it comes to when I feel really worked up about something. And if I feel like I have to say something, I want to say something, I go to tell the person how I'm feeling. And sometimes it's like, no, you don't. And I think my higher self often communicates to me being the higher person in the situation and just letting it go, because your higher self would not sweat those small things.
Right. There's no ego involved with your higher self. So you're not the higher self doesn't get worked up about like human problems.
Yeah.
There's this more like holistic outlook. And so the little things that you may be bothered by or get triggered by, like your higher self, it's like that's not, I don't have to worry about that. Like that's not a big deal, and it's always, they're always going to come from a place of love and compassion and those very like pure emotions.
Yeah. Like you said, they have a holistic view on situations and a more spiritual outlook on your life, and just the overall, I don't know what the word is. They just don't take life seriously because they understand the human experience, and how whatever we're focused in on right now and freaking out about or overreacting towards, they almost like they have this very lighthearted nature to them where they can almost like laugh at the situation. They're like, oh, that's just a blip in time. You're fine.
That's just a human problem.
Yeah.
That's
so
not real.
When you check in with them or your higher self, it's like, it's this nice reminder of like, oh yeah, I'm having this experience right now. It's totally valid. But I think it's also a way to like jump out of karmic loops or karmic situations that you're in where you would just constantly get caught in this pattern of reacting a certain way or behaving a certain way. And then you get frustrated with yourself because you're like, why did I do that again? So when you have your higher self to ask questions, especially when you're in those situations, you'll get the answer of like, do it different this time. Either take some space for you or, show up differently than you would have before.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing that we'll talk about during this episode is, as we're explaining what your higher self is, we're going to start talking about like, how do you tap into that? Like, how do you ask your higher self questions, or how do you get that wisdom? So we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it right now.
You get into it right now?
Yeah.
Let's do it. So how to tap into your higher self. I mean, I kind of said already yesterday, my way was journaling.
Mm-hmm.
I was feeling a little lost, feeling a little overwhelmed, and just like writing things down, getting it like a word vomit on the page.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get past all that shit and get to like the good stuff, and you're writing these things and you're like, oh yeah. You read it back and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I'm feeling that way. It makes sense that, these emotions are coming up, and that's okay. And yeah, moving on. So I think that's something I've been trying to integrate more into my life.
Yeah. I would say start out with, spending some time by yourself in solitude and quiet, and allowing yourself space to, even right now, as I'm saying it, like if you were driving or doing whatever, going on a walk, doing the dishes, like take time right now as I'm speaking to focus in on who your higher self is. So, what would the most ideal version of you be like?
Mm-hmm.
What would they look like? So get like really specific with details, like literally their physical appearance. What do they look like?
What clothes are they wearing?
What are they wearing?
Yeah, down to the smallest details.
What's their hair look like? And then the next thing would be, how do they feel? So when you see them, what energy emits from them? How do they make you feel? How do you want other people to feel when they see you? In the most ideal version, how do you want to show up to the world? So that is how your higher self should carry themselves.
Yeah. And then I think the beauty about taking that time to really figure out what that looks like and what that feels like is you can start to embody some of those things, whether it's literally, if you don't feel connected yet, maybe it's literally like you saw your higher self wearing something and you start dressing like that, like whatever you need to make you start to like really embody and feel that energy. And I think it's a step in the right direction. Yeah.
Like I said, I knew I had to start getting active because my higher self, she's got a cute little bod and I gotta keep up with that. Oh man. So what do they do? What's their daily life like? What are their daily habits? Like I said, literally make an avatar of your higher self because it's so much easier when you're in that day-to-day communication with them, with it, however you want to see it. That you have this like tangible thing for your mind to go to.
Yeah.
Because when you are feeling really worked up or frustrated or whatever's going on, when you need clarity on something, it's really nice to tap into that person in your mind's eye where you can be like, oh yeah, there they are. What would they do?
Exactly. Yeah. Or like you said, in those moments when like you're feeling a lot of emotions come up and you want to like explode on someone, just taking a breath and being like, what would they do? Would they do this? Probably not.
Yeah.
And just like the more you can do that, and before long, I feel like you won't even have to think about that anymore because it'll be second nature, because that's just like how you're acting and how you're moving in the world. And that's like our goal, is to integrate as much of that higher self energy into our physical human lives.
Yeah. The integration is key. It's like, that's a really good point. Not just seeing them separate than you, seeing them as another version of you and
working towards that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a future version of yourself. And a lot of the times, which is the goal, you'll catch up to that version of your higher self. And that is something to celebrate. That's so cool. I don't think I'm quite there yet. I started thinking about my higher self probably coming up on, it's probably been like 8 years now of me like really having an idea of who my higher self is. And I'd say I'm close, but I'm not quite there. And I also think she's evolved in many ways, but that's the thing. The person that you declare as your higher self is constantly evolving alongside you. And I think that's normal. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
And you want to be getting closer and closer to that version of yourself, because like you said, that's the goal. So integration is key.
Absolutely. And like, there may be a feeling that, like you said, you do feel separate, but know that your higher self, no matter what you're doing, no matter if you're thinking about them or not, like your higher self is always going to be there. Like you are always connected. It's just a matter of intentionally trying to, like we said, integrate and just know more about your higher self. And like, yeah.
Yeah. And a big part of your higher self is understanding what their belief systems are.
Mm-hmm.
Because in those situations, when you are asking for guidance and clarity and asking for answers, that's when you want to make sure they have a strong belief system towards how they show up in the world or how they believe that others should show up in the world. So getting to know your higher self as if they're a friend,
Mm-hmm.
the same way you would know your friend inside and out. I know how Danielle shows up to the world. I pretty much know her belief systems and how she chooses to show up. And that's the same thing for your higher self. There shouldn't be a lot of unknown when it comes to your higher self. And so making sure you're spending time to get to know that version. And like Danielle was saying, journaling is a great way to, figure out their ins and outs.
Yeah. And I think also getting really clear on how your higher self communicates with you, because it's going to look different for everyone. Like it's very similar to the intuition course that we talk about this a lot. Like some people are going to get these feelings like in your heart or in your gut, and like understanding when your higher self is trying to communicate with you, like those little moments of like premonitions or gut feelings, or just moments where you're like, this is what I should be doing. And it's kind of like last week we talked about inspired action, and that's like a huge part of this is understanding that your higher self is going to communicate with you. And once you get in tune with that, then you can take the actions to start becoming closer to that version of your highest self.
Mm-hmm. It's such a good point because, maybe that's for you, but I know it's not for me. I don't actually hear this, like, I don't get this.
A little voice in your head.
Hi,
Savannah.
Like I said, a lot of the time it's this moment of pause where I visualize my higher self, and it's not her being like, hey, what's up, girlfriend? Like,
tap, tap, tap. Hey, I've been trying to get a hold of you. What have you been doing? I have some things I need to tell you.
No, it's often
it's much more subtle.
Yeah, it's often I visualize her, and she's just kind of I would honestly say she's kind of floating in this orb of light, and she just stares at me. And it's nothing like literal. It's something, again, that I imagine in my mind's eye, and I see her just calmly standing there. And so whatever situation I'm in, I apply that energy to the situation. I'm like, oh, fuck, I got it. Practice peace, practice peace, practice peace. Because it's just like, oh, this human experience can be so frustrating at times. And then, these versions of ourselves live outside of the third dimensional realm. So that's why they're able to give guidance, because they're able to see things, like we said, on a more holistic, spiritual level, where they see all the nuances of life and why these confusing things are actually there for a purpose, and they can comfort us in times of confusion and really help us make sense of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think play around with these different tools that we're mentioning, whether it is meditation and really visualizing, or journaling, or getting out in nature. I think just anytime you're quiet and you can kind of just like have space to think, I think, regardless of how you're trying to get in touch with this energy, that's going to be like your best case scenario.
Yeah. Do you have a higher self that you visualize? Like, do you know what she looks like physically?
So I was trying to think. It had to have been you, because who else would have done this with me? But a couple of years ago, I want to say you led me through a meditation. Was this you?
Yeah.
Of my highest self. Yeah. And it was so cool. So this is something else you could do. So basically the meditation that she led me through was like, you're in bed, and picture yourself like 10 years in the future. And you wake up out of bed, and it's just like your dream life. And so slowly, like, you get out of bed, like, what kind of sheets are you in? Like, what are you wearing? Like, you look around the room. What does your room look like? What are you doing the first thing you get out of bed? What kind of breakfast are you making? Like, kind of like going through this whole morning routine, but like embodying like who you are. And that was really cool. I really liked that.
Oh, I just got the chills, because I had someone lead me through that at the very beginning of 2020. And it was almost uncomfortable to go there, because I was in such a fear-based mindset at the time, to fall into the faith-based mindset of like best case scenario. And I could start crying, because it should move you that deeply, of where you are sitting there really absorbing how you feel. Like you said, how do your sheets feel? What did you make for breakfast? What did you put on your body? when you took a shower, what products did you use? Like the most ideal version of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's such a tool to have this version of yourself to grow towards, because I mean, that's also like the whole law of attraction manifestation. That's part of the equation. Is first you need to get that intuition ping of what that thing is that you want. And if you want to be that version of yourself, like you're starting off the game right, because you have this tangible thing now to work towards.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's then the energy is behind that. Then, you know, when you do go to the store and, oh, I'm going to buy this product because this is something I wanted for a long time and it feels so luxurious and it makes me feel so good. You know, all these little decisions that we make are just going to like work towards that. But yeah, I thought that was a really cool way of just really getting clear and like have fun. Like if you do this, like don't hold yourself back from dreaming. Because I think that's the thing too. Like we might have like, oh, like, but you know, I couldn't have that because like X, Y, and Z. Like just have fun with it. Like play with like literally best case scenario. Like best case scenario.
Oh, I forgot about that practice.
I'm really glad that I thought of it because I remember so clearly when you walked me through that because it's so fun.
It's
like
so
if
fun.
nothing else, it's just really fun.
It's such a good reminder, like for what I've dreamt up and I remember one of the things that stuck out to me was how like simple my life felt, and simplicity was such a key feeling. And I kind of feel like as we get older, as we have these goals we want to achieve, that was something that really made me feel like proud and something excited for, is like, oh, just because you're going to keep growing and evolving and achieving more doesn't mean things have to become more complicated. You can make things more simple and beautiful and intentional. And that's how my life really felt. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Well, and it's so funny too, because I'm not a morning person at all. And so like
yours was like 11 a.m.
Well, I just think about like my morning routine is not very intentional, but in this like vision that I had, it was like everything was so intentional. And I'm like, I even that aspect of it, I'm like, I do, even if I'm literally getting out of bed at 11 and doing whatever, like I want to just be more intentional and like just like notice the things around me, you know? And I think that's even those like more energetic or non-tangible things you could take out of that visualization.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mine still, I mean, to be completely honest, mine had little kitties in it, not cats, like actual children. Kitties.
Kitties everywhere.
Kiddos, children. And so even with that aspect of my future self in the next, like you said, 10 years, it's not going to be anytime soon. Knock on wood. Okay. You know, there's still some level of, I don't want to use the word chaos, but like, you know, the unpredictable nature of life. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have a set, like I wake up, do yoga, then I meditate, then you know what I mean? It was something that I noticed that I was like flowing through life, but super intentionally and without getting worked up and like
overwhelmed.
Yeah, without the overwhelm. So
it's like, this is normal. Everything's working out. Like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to embody that part of my higher self. Like everything's working out. Everything's great. Even though I'm busy, like it's all working out. Like that's what this getting back into balance is for me. Like taking on more on my plate, but not letting it take over and not letting it like run me. And like, okay, I got this.
But again, think about the version of us 2 years ago.
Yeah.
A year ago. It's like,
I know.
That's crazy.
I know.
Like I was traveling all the time. I'd come stay in San Luis Obispo and we'd meet up at the studio and you'd be working another job and just like go. And how much our life has slowed down, and like that simplicity and intentionality have just like been trickling in more and more. So
I feel that
we're getting there. Nothing's going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
And
again, still finding so much gratitude for the moment you're in, like not getting lost in those ideas. Just also finding those same aspects of your dream life in the life that you already have.
Yeah, which is what I was noting on when I was in therapy, where I was like, things aren't half bad. You know what I mean? There's things that I'm striving for and I'm working towards. And I think that's just being human. You know, you achieve one thing, like you were talking about last week, you hit your goal of, well, I was going to say a bazillion.
I thought you were saying a billion. I'm like, not quite there.
Not
yet.
quite, but a million. And then you're like, okay, how do I get to 2? And I
Yeah.
think that's just the nature of things. But
Yeah.
if we can take a second to just really be present with this
Mhm.
moment and realize that,
Celebrate how far you've come.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, chasing you're never going to be truly present if you're chasing the future, chasing the past. So it's just like, how can we be as present as possible, and having your higher self to tap into? Those people, those entities are as present as they come, because they're not a part of this third dimensional realm that gets worked up on
Mhm.
the tiny things. So they are
Yeah.
just sitting there just like, hello child, what can I do for you? And you're like, oh, I need to be more like that.
Yeah. And I think with that too, something I'm working on is asking for advice from, whether it's your highest self or your angels or your guides or whatever you want to call them. But I think that's something I've realized recently is like, I believe that I have entities higher than myself that are looking at my best interests at heart and are super wise. And so I would like to set a goal to like ask and be more like, let there be a two-way stream of communication.
Yeah.
And not just them like, I'm here if you need me. I'm here if you need me. Like
I think a lot of the answers they provide too are just so comforting. Like, again, you're never gonna ask for a ethereal entity on these big questions that you're never gonna get the answer from them that's like, you should be doing more. Like, they're never gonna punish you. They're never gonna show up mean or aggressive. You're always gonna be met with this nurturing energy and the energy of love, and it's just gonna become more and more easeful. Like life, you're not gonna show up to life with this, like, again, that stop and go energy where you're like, I'm going, and then you have a freak out because you start overthinking or second guessing. But if you can use your,
resources.
I'm like thinking of like panel of angels, they're all just like, oh my God, I had the vision of like American Idol. Like, you have the judge, but they're not judges because they're not here to criticize you, but
they're just here to be like, I love you.
It's
so wonderful.
I know the word. It's a council. They're there to just,
I do actually really love the idea of like a panel of judges though that are just there to like love and support you and give you advice. That sounds really fabulous.
A council to just, give I keep losing the word, Danielle.
Wisdom.
To give wisdom, to consult on your life. So they're just here to be like, hey, I've been noticing you're doing this one thing. How about we go ahead and switch it up a little bit? Let's see what happens if you show up this way. And you're like, okay, sounds good.
Yeah. And all of this is just intuition work, because the more in tune you are with your intuition, the more you're going to be in tune with that deeper wisdom.
And the person I think of, as we were talking about this, the person I think of is our friend Kaya. Because bless her little heart. Oh my gosh, she is just, what is her higher self? Like, I can't even imagine, because she definitely carries a lot of energy that I am practicing and trying to show up in just like such a calm demeanor, nurturing, having so much faith in your existence and what you're doing. And so when I think of a real life example, I think of her. So if you have anyone in your life that you're like, wow, look how calmly they show up to life and with so much faith towards life and with such a, beautiful demeanor, whatever you deem that as, like, it's also really cool to have examples in your everyday life.
Totally. Or just those people that really, you can tell they're fully living their truth. Like they're not holding anything back. Like they're just fully showing up as themselves. I think, naming our podcast, the Authentic Souls Podcast, that's something that like we aim to do. And, that's just like constant work and practice to get there. But I think that would be amazing if we could all do our best version of that. Yeah.
I mean, shit, I said, I'm showing up as Savannah, lover or hater. Like that's the only version of me I've got. And I will work on her and I will continue to better myself. But at the same time, I am not going to limit or hide any aspect of me for the comfort of others. So once I just decided like, that's not going to happen anymore. I think that's when you know, and I think with our lifestyle and what we chose to do with our life, that's when we really realized that, you know, we should rename our brand to The Authentic Souls, because that's really how that's our goal for showing up in life, is to be as authentic as possible. And
just to show up. Yeah. I think one thing, I don't know how many years ago we came up with this, but we just both kind of had this mutual pain of like, we want to, our jobs or how we get paid or just how we show up, like we want to be paid for being us. We want to show up to the world and just be us. And like, if we can help others that way or inspire others, but like, we don't want to fake it in any way if we don't have to. Like, how can we show up that way? And how can we like help others that way?
And I think it's so needed, because we live in a world that has, you know, taught us all how to put up these different facades and put on these different masks to be liked or to get approval. And I think that's why we deemed it as an important role that needed to be filled. And, you know, just feeling so called to step into this space and start sharing our story and sharing our, you know, personal wisdom that we've gained over the years, is just because there's not a lot of people doing it. I think it's becoming more and more popular, and people are just saying, fuck it. Like, this is too exhausting and this does not feel good.
Yeah. I think like the culture around like curated Instagram is going away, which I love. I'm really happy about that, because I've definitely been a part of that. Like, this podcast was terrifying in the beginning because being vulnerable does not come naturally to me, and especially to like people I don't know. Like, it's a huge leap for me, but I knew it was important, not only for me, but hopefully to people listening.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a work in progress. We're not perfect.
I know. Oh, but isn't it so cool how we were brought together for this? Because I remember, like, again, in my early 20s, back when I was living at home in Roseville, it's like, I would have these visions of, again, of my higher self showing up and speaking in certain ways. And it frustrated me so much because I didn't know how that was going to pan out in my life. And I remember talking to friends and being like, I need to like be talking to people. I need to be like sharing these topics. And I would sit down and try to like get on my laptop with like, what's that, the webcam that comes in your computer?
Or like photo booth.
On a photo booth. And I'd be like, all right, like so serious and just clunky and weird. And so
this is how you're going to get out of the matrix.
100% 20-year-old Savannah who was just like, fuck society.
Aliens are real.
Yeah. Crystals. Yeah. So that was me. But again, I think that was just like a vision of my higher self. That was a version of me that I'm stepping into now. And this feels so, you know, like calm, and there's so much space being held, and we have a system in play and we have structure, and it feels so good to show up every week now with these topics, because it doesn't feel like we're rushing, and it just feels like right on time, you know?
Well, and I think that's a huge thing to remember, and we talk about this a lot, but maybe if you are seeing these visions or you see yourself in 10 years or a couple of years and you're like, oh my gosh, there's this thing that I want, but I don't understand how it works into my life right now. I don't see how it's going to click. I don't understand how it's going to happen. Like, don't worry about any of that, because most of that is just timing, and there's nothing we can do about timing. It's just time is going to do what time is going to do, and it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to, because that's something I always get worried about. I'm like, well, how is it going to happen? Well, what is it going to look like? Well, I want all the details, you know, and sometimes you kind of have to like let go of all that and let it just kind of unfold.
Yeah. Have trust and faith and keep showing up. Like, again, that's when you tap into your higher self and you ask, what do I do in this moment? I'm feeling worry. I'm feeling panic because I want this thing and it's not happening. Again, my higher self just looks at me with this soft smile, and I'm like, no words needed.
And you're like, what are you worried about?
Everything
they're
is
on
fine.
A plane where time does not exist. So they're like, why are you worried? Why? I don't get it.
Everything,
don't be worried.
Everything will be accomplished that is meant to happen.
Yeah.
And
it's going to happen exactly when it's supposed to. No earlier, no later. Yeah.
Nothing to worry about. You are right on time.
That's a reminder that I need to tell myself every day when I'm trying to push. It's Capricorn season, so we're pushing right now. But remember, it's all going to work out. It's all going to happen when it's supposed to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's good to show up for yourself every day in whatever way that looks for you, but just don't overdo it, you know? You don't need pressure on yourself to be anything more than you are, because you are perfect the way you are right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we're always trying to change. It's the paradox of life, right? It's like, as I'm saying, this is a future version of yourself to strive for. It's like, but at the same time, the version of who you are right now is perfect.
Mhm.
And so that's another example of not getting caught up in the future or the past, and just being aware of the current situation, where you're at now, who you are now. Like Danielle said, giving grace and comfort and nurture that person, that version of you, because without that, they're not going to grow into the next version.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Well said.
Oh,
What a fun topic.
I know.
I just feel good. I feel like warm and fuzzy after talking about this.
I know. Yeah.
I want to go think about my higher self a little bit. Like, what is she doing
It's
right
honestly
now?
so much fun.
It is.
Like, you just get to dream and dream and dream on who you want to be and what do you want to look like literally like an avatar in a game,
Mhm.
which is so fun.
I know. Yeah.
In the Matrix. This is all a simulation.
Nothing is real.
No. I mean, I don't fucking know. I actually don't know. And anyone who claims they do know, I don't know about that. But
I don't trust them.
I don't know about that.
Well, thanks for sticking with us this week. I hope you learned something. I want to hear what all of your higher selves look like.
Yeah.
I want all of our higher selves to hang out.
I know. If this was 3rd grade, we would all draw a picture of our higher self. You ask me, what does it look like?
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
I kind of want to go do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we gave you a little life hack,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep.
You're able to tap into this version of you when you are uncertain, when you are feeling anxious.
You're not feeling confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The silly thing is the older I get, the more I realize it's just like, take a deep breath. All is well. Even when it feels like it's not, this too shall pass. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And you will achieve those goals. So
divine timing. Just wait.
Just
Just
wait it
hang
out.
on. Hang on a little bit longer.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my higher self says adios and is signing off.
My higher self is saying, sending lots of love and encouragement. You all are doing great. You're right where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Mine just is calmly staring at you. Staring.
Just staring.
Mine's just
ominously.
You know, just that nurturing
The smile. Like,
smile. All is well. You're doing great, my child. I need to stop. All right. On that note,
have a great week.
we'll talk to you
soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.